Okay, I just ate 4 sliders. I just drank some fizzy stuff. I'm about to Let's dive into the previous video. So I just uploaded a video probably minutes ago, which you can go back and watch it after this, that talked about automation and AI, and just kind of a little warning there. I'm giving out my warnings today. The warning that I wanted to talk about, and I think a lot of you want to learn about, is that there's a lot of networks out there now. There's some new networks, and if you're on Facebook, you're in these groups and you're seeing all of these, oh, we got 500 people join our network and all of that stuff, and that's great. I did burp. The thing about the networks that you've got to be careful with is this actually was a conversation not so much about that people were talking to me about. It's an ad I saw online from a different company, and actually I actually edited that ad a while back. So it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is coming out 5 years later from when I create. It's not even the right software. It's like, whatever. It looks fancy. And that's what led me to believe, be careful. Don't just trust the recommendation that you find. Don't just trust the company that you're looking at. There's some due diligence that you need to be careful with. And I'll go over a few of the things that you need to know. I'll also link a video after this that goes a little bit more in depth into the networks and tells you like some of the things that I looked at and the things that I would lean towards as far as like the good and the bad. The biggest thing, if you take nothing away from this video and you just ended it here, would be don't trust the ads. If they're professionally built and they're geared towards one thing, unless they hit all of these criteria, which I will mention here in a second, I would be a little bit leery, because the thing that people don't realize is there is no same network. They're all different in all sorts of ways. I'll explain. The biggest piece that I didn't think about directly is, what is the type of business that the network is doing? That has to do also with how many people are in that network, right? The larger companies have a bigger spread, so a lower risk. The smaller networks have a lower spread, but they're willing to pay you more. So there's a few give and takes there. If you can find that happy medium, if you're watching this 5 years later, this is probably still relevant, but the networks have probably shifted and changed. So, oh, you thought I was going to name one. No, I'm not doing it. I'm not going to name any network specifically, because I can't tell you what their rules are. I can't tell you what their structure is. And I can't tell you what their pay is now if it's shifted. I can tell you the things that you need to look out for. So the biggest thing that nobody's talking about is, what is the type of business that that network is focused in? Let's talk about it. If I wrote $1 million worth of business and most of it canceled and most of it had claims, and I have a high loss ratio and it's all just crap, do you want to be part of that? If I wrote $1 million worth of business over here and it was great business and I kept 90% of it and very little claims, do you want to be part of that? Let's look at that a little bit further in depth, because one of the biggest things and the biggest piece that networks take at the end, and if you're never seen a network, this is the biggest piece you got to look out for, is that at the end of the year, there is a commission split. There's a bonus, and it's really a graph. So So what happens is these companies, these Safecos, the Progressives, the Allstates, the whoever company, A, B, C, D, whatever they're getting the business from, they look at the growth of the network. Did you grow 20% or 30% or 50% or 100+%? Okay, that's good. I want you to grow if I'm focused on that. Were you profitable? Maybe yes, no. That's what we're talking about, good versus bad business. Were we good? Okay, great. What was the retention? Oh, it was really good. You get 4% of a return. You over here that wrote crap business, was unprofitable, you get a 0.5% of return, or none. Like, you're not even qualified if you didn't grow X amount. And there's a little bit of a graph that you've got to meet in order to do that. And if you're direct with a carrier, they'll do it directly with you. But if you're part of a network, most commonly that network gets paid out as a whole, which is actually a benefit. That's one of the reasons you join a network, is because they have millions of dollars worth of business, and your $100,000, $200,000, $500,000 worth of business doesn't impact them as much, except it adds to them. So what they can do is they can go to this carrier and say, we've got $50 million worth of business. You need to pay us a higher commission split. And now you get a piece of that higher commission split benefit. If we're writing crap, we're going to get a low return on our investment at the end of the year. If we're writing positive business, we're going to get a high return on investment at the end of the year. And it makes sense for a network to do well because they're going to get paid more as a network. The downfall is some networks just want anyone and everybody to join. Just come on in, let's just write business. It's all good. And if they're not getting those commission splits, that's the biggest thing to be careful. Now that branches off to one other thing. If you look at the upfront commission, so most networks are 80% new business. That means you keep 80% of everything you write. They keep 20. And then they usually do 80% renewals or 75%, whatever the case is. Like they range anywhere from 70 to even 100%. Some are 100%, you keep all of it. And they just want that year-end bonus, or they just want you to be part of their network to get a bigger book so that they can get a better commission split for them, right? So there's benefits. You still got to be careful, because what are they doing? You got to look at the whole thing. So when you're looking at that, you got to think, okay, so how big is this network's book? How well is the business? And are they getting a good commission split? What's their average commission? If they're only getting 13% or 12% on average, that might not be as good as a company that's getting a 15%. And when you're writing $1 million worth of business, or you're at a $5 million book, you might not think you're going to get there anytime soon, but eventually you will. You do hang around the flagpole, subscribe. You'll do well, and you'll actually get to a level to where you're making $1 million in profit. But now if you get 3% less, $30,000 less, that pays for a service person. That pays for a couple months of marketing if you're trying to really grow. It pays for a lot of stuff that every year that you can continually get that income. So those are the two biggest things. There's a ton of other things. There's the exit strategy. And honestly, I don't say exit strategy as in like I plan to exit at any point in time. Exit strategy is more so if you outgrow the network, or if they don't have a cap and they start charging you more and more, they change the rules on you, you can leave. That's a benefit, right? You want to make sure that you're not stuck. The larger networks will force you to sell in network. So now you can't just take your book without a penalty. You're going to pay 20, 30% just to leave them. And now you're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars just because you wrote with them versus somebody that didn't require an exit strategy. The biggest thing, honestly, for the exit strategy is if you're not a fit for each other. If you join the network, you find out it's just not a good network, all of that stuff is bad, like they hate you, you hate them, like you just leave, right? It's time to pick up and go. I'm not gonna go too far into that because that really should never be the plan, like, hey, I'm gonna build this and take it and go over here. Like you just need to focus on growing, right? There's gonna be years of having some relationship, and if it doesn't pan out, then sure, you can pick up and go. Unless you've joined a network that doesn't allow that. So like I said, I'm not going to go super far in depth in that because that's really the main things that I find that people don't focus on is they get tricked with the ads. They get tricked with the commercials, and it sounds like an amazing deal. And we've got this agency in a box, and one day I'm probably going to make an agency in a box, right? And here's the success strategy. Be one of our managers, be one of our people, help our brand grow, and we're going to help you blah, 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 right? We've figured it out. And that will attract a ton of people. But are they actually really following suit? If it's a franchise, that's a totally different story. If you hear the word franchise, start digging because they have to disclose that. What does your average agency do? Do you actually write the business yourself? Do you have a model agency? What's their numbers? What's their conversion? What's their retention? What was your year-end bonus that last year? What is blah, blah, blah. Figure out all of those pieces because the franchises have a legal obligation to give you the average, at least I believe they do. They have to give you the average of what the average agency is doing as far as a profitability. Now, if they lie to you and all of this happens, you're safe. You legally can go after them and say, no, you cost me this. It's a whole thing. Like I said, that's a whole package in another story, another day, another thought. Let me know what your thoughts are. I'm curious to know, have you guys joined a network? Do you love it? Are you like, I don't care, I'm in the network, I'm never going to sell out of the network? For insurance agents, that question is like asking what is a PC versus Mac? Who's better? The ones that have joined are usually okay. It's not the end of the world if you don't have an exit strategy and all of that stuff. It's like, they're not bad that you join them. It's just got to fit what you're looking for. If you want to learn more about the actual networks, I actually made a video here that went over the difference of networks, similar to what we did, but a little bit more in depth on the other pieces that you would want to know about it. If you're kind of curious of the last video I mentioned that started this, we'll go ahead and put that video there. I'm Mark W. Flockhart. I'll see you soon.